Testing, 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 one, two, three. Hello, YouTubers. This is a new exciting session that I couldn't wait to kind of get it ready for you so we can start talking about something that for 20 something years I've been doing software, something that I've come across all the time, which is migration. Data migration. If you're doing anything serious, in the tech industry, you're very likely going to be dealing with something that has to do with data. You're working in a large enterprise level systems with distributed storages or monolithic storage, and you decided to move into this V1 or V2 or VX, or you're moving on to a completely different type of storage. And you're a .NET guy, you're working in the Azure Microsoft world, and you start wondering, how do I migrate a million records that have been historically, stored in a particular enterprise system? Well, I did a little survey and started asking a bunch of my, smarter, more senior friends in the industry, hey, if you're gonna do some migration, what would you do? And answers varied. They were around, all over the place. Some people started like a software engineer always thinks, I need to write code. I need to do something to make that code, to make that data move from one place to the other. So some of them said, oh, I need to generate a million insert SQL statements to insert that data, to generate insert statements and then put that data in, the new database. That's one approach. Of course, please don't do that. That's inefficient and very time consuming, and very likely if you don't have a server of a workstation that's running, you're going to struggle a lot with memory and whatnot. In addition to the fact that the database kind of will regret or kind of reject, you reject your statements. Some others were a little bit more sophisticated. They decide, well, we could just build the entity framework to pull a record, do the mapping, and then set the record back using the entity framework one by one. But that would take hours, could be days, for something like that to complete. No matter how fast your system is, no matter how fast the code that you're writing is, it's still not very optimum. A better option, people would be like, well, I could take a copy, like use SSIS SQL Management Studio, and basically take a package, with all the data, and then deploy that package into a SQL, the other SQL server, the modern SQL server, which is also a problem because there's no guarantee that the new server, the new database that you're moving data into is going to be SQL. And therefore, it could be MySQL, it could be Oracle, it could be any kind of database. So that also wouldn't work. And then, I thought to myself, well, the best way for you to learn on the job, if you're doing a job and you're learning on it, do not go to the solution that you're familiar with. Do not go to the common solution. Say, okay, I have the solution. Let me give myself a couple of hours to go find out new ways to do the same task, right? What's new? What's new out there? There's always someone out there trying to solve a problem that everyone has been solving in a certain way, and they want to kind of change the industry and kind of introduce a new way of solving problems. So I stumbled upon this amazing tool, very, very good tool that I'd like to kind of show you today. And that tool is going to help you in so many different ways, especially if you're doing anything, if you're a professional engineer, you're working in the industry, people expect you to, kind of do work, for them and including the data, including all that kind of work, they expect you to kind of do something like that. So I created, first of all, I created a couple of databases. Let me kind of show you the screen here. Just to kind of demonstrate this, I created a couple of databases completely separate from each other intentionally. So these are two database servers. One of them is called the School Legacy DB server. Okay. And this is the School Modern DB server. So two completely separate database servers. And then inside of each of them, if you're wondering what I'm using right now, it's something called Azure Data Studio. Download it. It's really fun and cool. And I think it's built on the shell of VS Code. So inside of each server, there is a database called ADF Demo School Legacy DB. So that's a legacy database. And you have a School Modern database. So you have two different databases inside of two separate servers. And you have this going on, right? And inside of each one of them, there's a table, one called Students V1 and Student V2. That's a bad naming convention. It could be Student V1s and Student V2s. But, the naming convention is a story for another day. And then what you're going to notice in here is that the first database table, I inserted in it a million records. It's a million and some change. Like if I go like this and say, okay, give me a query and say select count, from this guy and students v1, and I do count like this, it's going to give you about v1, oh, from student v1. That'll give you about a million 5,123 records. 1,523 records. Okay. What about the other one? The other table has practically nothing. We're moving into this new version and new database. So if I go and say select all, well, I'll do select all because there's nothing in there anyway. From students v2, and I select, it'll be like, hey, you got nothing going on. And the job is, and you probably have noticed, the first model has first name, last name separated, and the second model has only ID and name. There's no first name, last name. And I did that intentionally to show you a little bit of piece of processing midway. You're not just copying apples to apples. You're taking apples, cooking them, and then presenting them as an apple pie. So it's not exactly one-to-one. Okay. So how do we do that? Do we generate a million insert statements? Not really. Let me kind of show you real quick what we can do. Here's Azure. This is my Azure. And then I go into ADF demo. You'll see all these database servers that I created. Let me take my face out of your way so you can actually see what's happening. Here you go. All right. And then let's create a new thing called Azure Data Factory. So Azure Data Factory. This is the magic tool that I'm going to show you right now. And this magic tool, it's going to help you migrate a million records in a couple of minutes. Literally a minute, 50 seconds or something like that. So let's just do this. So I'm going to call this ADF demo migration. Let's not call it demo schools. Let's hope that name is not reserved. It's not reserved. We're picking up V2. It's the only one available. I'm setting on the west side, so let's put it in West US2, and let's create this quick tool. There we go. All right. It's going to create this tool in a second, which I love, how this tool is supported in the cloud platform. You can just spin up one super quick. There you go. Just you already have the tool, right? Refresh this guy, some caching going on. It's going to give you the tool in a second. Come on. Here you go. So this is Azure Data Factory. I'm going to launch the studio. Very pretty studio. I hope we have like at some point in time a desktop version of this because I totally want to I want to use this as a desktop application. You can set up a repository, like a Git repository, so it can kind of show you what's going on. But you don't have to in this particular scenario, right? What I'm gonna do I'm gonna start with a data flow. So let's start from there, right? So this is school legacy to modern migration flow. So this is my flow. Naming is important, but it's going to throw names for you there as you go, right? So we're trying to migrate from one place to the next, right? I'm trying to migrate. So just kind of visualize what's going on. You are literally picking up a database. That's the legacy database. And you want to migrate a million records to modern database, right? But it's not one-to-one, so you have to do a little bit of processing here in the middle. So you're going to have to map first name, last name, put a space in between, and basically kind of do some transformation to move these records from here to here. And, the team is going live tomorrow. You have a crazy deadline, and you want to fix that problem immediately. So let's add the source. The source meaning, hey, where do I read the data from? Where do you want me to read that data from? Let me minimize a lot of the things that's going on here. So this is the sources will be legacy student v1 source. Okay. How do I hook that up to my database? I'm going to go here and say add a new data set and look at all these different data sets that you have. Endless amount. You can call APIs. You can read from a blob storage. You can read from an Excel sheet. You can literally do anything with this tool. It's fantastic. It's amazing. It's like I discovered fire. It's amazing. So students V1 table. So that's what I'm going for. I want to read the students V1 table. It says, hey, what's the linked service? So which database? So this is school legacy database, like that. And then I'm going to go here and say, okay, here's my subscription, pay as you go. And then I'm going to pick up the server. So here's all the database servers that you have here on this system. So which one do you want to pick in here? I'm going to pick up the legacy because that's where I'm migrating from. And then it's going to say, hey, which database do you want to work with? I want to say, I want to work with this database. Let's add in here the password. You can also do it through a key principal, however you want to do it. And then I'm going to log in, put the credentials, create the data set. So we created the database. The database, it's amazing. It's keeping everything in place. Like everything is there. You don't have to go back and forth. It's all right there. One-stop shop for all things migration. Right there in front of you. And then the database table that I want to migrate to is students v1. No problem. So here's an OK. Okay, so now I set up the table. I'm going to put this in debug mode. So if you want to really care so much about whether the connection is done and you want to see the table, it gives you like this debuggability experience, like you are able to see your data right there and then, which is beautiful. I'll let it kind of do the preview, but down here there's nothing else to do. Here's the source options. Do you want to pull the data based on a particular query from this database, or do you just want to pull the whole table? Are you calling a stored procedure to pull in this data? Ton of things. You can edit the types of the data that's coming through. Amazing. It's using Spark under the hood, so it's doing a lot of magic things that's very familiar, very easy to use with people that are not familiar with like big data work and all that kind of stuff. Okay. I want to transform, so I'm going to use, you have all these tools. You have a join, conditional split, you have the pivot, all that. I'm going to use a derived column. So I'm going to take two columns and merge them into one. This is the mapping piece. Remember, in our draw IO, we basically said, I want to do a little bit of transformation. That's your guy right here. Okay, let's do this. So in here, I'm going to call this guy map from V1 to V2. And then in here, watch this, I can now select the column. So the ID is an ID. There's no difference here. It gives you the ability to build an expression. But you know, you don't want to do anything different with the ID. But what you want to do different is create a new column and call that new column name. And that column is a concatenation. Watch this. It's like a new programming language. It's like you're writing your own programming language. So concat, not contains, concat has autocomplete too, which is pretty cool. And then I want to put in first name from the old table. I want to put a space in there between first name and last name. And then I want to put in the last name, right there and then. And then I'm going to save that. So I basically am transforming, taking two tables. You can do a lot of crazy things in here, by the way. You can call an API, get some data. You know, you can do anything you want with the transformation, but this is the one that really care about. If you want to see if what you did actually works, you can always go to the data preview. It takes it a second because you're working with a million records here, but it takes a sample, right? You can literally go and control that and say, hey, my sample size is this amount, maybe 100, maybe 200 or whatever. However, the sample size you want to work with, you have all these options in there. While it's doing this data preview for us, let's go ahead and find the destination. So the database that I want to move the data into it. So I'm going to click a plus button here. I'm going to look for sync. That's the syncing of data. That's big data language. I don't know. You know, and then I'm going to go say modern student v2 sync. I'll say destination because it's not very familiar to everyone what this is. Sounds like we need a new source. So it says, hey, it's also a SQL database. Let's find the new database. It's going to be school modern database. We need to connect to that database. Same thing that we just did earlier. So pay as you go, name server. I want the modern student server, and then I want the modern database. I'm going to put in the username here. I'm going to put in the password right here, and then encrypt, non-encrypt, connect as whatever. I want to do this as fast as possible for you so you can see how easy it is to migrate a million database records. Okay, so what this guy is doing is saying, okay, this is moving over. The mapping, it will try to kind of make the job easier for you, especially if you're migrating something bigger. I've seen database tables that have 175 columns. Please don't do that. There's a nice thing called normalization in computer science. Go learn about it if you don't know about it. But if you have to migrate a lot, this thing intelligently goes and does this for you. It says, you know what? You named the columns the exact same name that's in my destination database table. So ID to an ID and a name to a name. I don't know how you get you got the idea. I don't know how you got the name. Move on and migrate. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I want to show you this is the debugging. Like, is my data working? Is my code working? Let me kind of click the debugging here real quick while I take a quick sip of tea, just to show you that it's actually rendering the data the way you expect. The data as it was, let's just going back to this tool. The data as it was in here, literally a million records, right? If I go and say select all from student V1s and I search like this, it generated first name, last name. By the way, all this randomly generated using Dynamics object filler. I literally just wrote a script using the entity framework. While we're at it, why don't I just show you that script? So here's a script right here, and I'm just gonna take away the commented code. I said I want a million records, and I want to send them in batches so um, it doesn't break the system and it doesn't cause memory corruption issues. So I sent like 10,000 at a time. If you haven't watched my LinkedIn, Facebook, Reddit post, you can actually do numbers like that. It helps with readability. So instead of doing 0000 like that, you can do an underscore and it will understand it. But I basically ran this script and I basically just created random first name, last name using this Dynamics library. Okay. Where were we? We wanted to see if it previews the data. Look at this. It says here's the ID, here's first name, last name, and here's the name that you concatenated. It's like you're debugging your data. Do you see that on the right side? Without my face there. There you go. You see it right here. It's very, very cool, right? And then in here, the same thing. If you want to preview your data, like the final destination, to make sure that your data is actually doing what it's supposed to, you can also click preview and you're debugging in real time. We set up the pipeline. We set it up exactly how we expected it. There you go. Look, it basically gonna migrate. To kind of make sure that there's nothing in the existing table, I'm gonna go down here and say select all from students, and there's nothing in here. And we're about to kick off a migration of a million records in less than 2 minutes. In less than 2 minutes. Let's do this. So to start this, we need a pipeline to contain that data flow that I created, right? I'm going to publish all of this first. You can publish, you can save, you can allow other people on your team to run the same flow. It's very, very pretty tool. All right, and then in the pipeline, I'm going to go create a new pipeline. I'm going to call my pipeline demo 1 million student migration, like that. And then I'm just going to drag and drop this guy here. You can attach multiple flows to each other, like do this stage first, and when you complete, if it fails, you click here, you say if it fails, click here and connect it to something else. If it succeeds, continue. You're basically playing Lego here. There's no code. You're basically putting Lego pieces in here. Okay, so I put this together. Now time me. I'm starting this right now to kick off the migration. I'm gonna just click debug. And this guy is going to kick off. Here we go. Moment of truth. Here you go. It says it's in progress. And you will see that the status on these guys starts to change, as it's validating. So it's queuing up and it's going to start to change the status as you're moving forward and migrating the records. Remember, we have no records so far in here. But very soon, as soon as this goes green, you're going to start seeing the data starting to flow, right? And it's going to give you the time. It's not like it's not like it's going to go and say, look, it worked really fast. No, it cares a lot about the timing and the ability to do things properly. So far it's queued. Here we go. The hope is that I didn't burn out my DTUs, data transfer units, um, with the try out of this. But yeah, there you go. So you see how this is all green? That means the process kicked off, right? I didn't generate any insert statements. I just had two database tables, and I'm moving data over, and I'm just kind of putting Lego pieces together to make things work. You can also make that view a little bit, nicer, however you want it to be, but that's there you go. 51 seconds. It says it succeeded. It's done. It says it succeeded. 51 seconds, 1 million records. Do you see that at the top? 1 million records have been transferred. 15 seconds high processing time, total processing time 51 seconds. Okay, now the moment of truth, right? Did it actually work? Let's go here to student v2s. I'm going to go do a count and run. And boom, you have 1,005,123 records through and through without a hitch. Without a hitch, right? Now, don't believe your eyes. I mean, go ahead and do a search like this, and we're going to verify. I'm going to take a random ID. I'm just going to scroll like this and take one random student ID from here. And then I'm going to go to the old one and say where ID equals this. The ID that was generated here is for who did I generate an ID for? 728, 728. Where is that? 728. Did I lose the guy? So let's pick up one. Let's pick up a random one. So this guy's called Land Gear, right? And I'm gonna put their ID right here, and I should see Land Gear here. Land Gear, Land Gear. Okay. So the data's there. You migrated data in a million records in 51 seconds. That's it. I'm not going to say anything else. Go play with this tool. You can make API calls. You can read Excel sheets. You can read binary data. You can kick off an Azure functions, right? Apparently, Azure Data Factory has been around since 2015, and I just heard about it this month. So, of course, if I know about it, I have to teach it to you. That's a charity of knowledge. But go build something great with it. And if you ever come across a migration project, you know where to go now. I hope you find this useful. I wish you all best and success. And as usual, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to drop a comment in the comment section. Consider donating to our cause, here on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Share with people that you think will be, will benefit from this. And take care. Thank you all so much.